Does homeowners insurance cover mold? Why or why not? As Harlan notes, insurance policies cover fortuitous losses, sudden and accidental, only. They generally exclude anything that is due to ongoing or continuous conditions. With regard to mold, I'm Canadian. It has a U in it. Damn it, coverage will depend on the policy wording, proximate cause of the mold, and date of discovery. Many policies will outright exclude mold, fungi, and spores. Policies that do not outright exclude mold will still exclude losses that are due to ongoing or continuous conditions that give rise to a loss. In most cases, mold in a home is due to an ongoing problem with humidity or moisture levels, often due to inadequate ventilation, or continuous seepage of water through a wall, leaky roof, foundation, window frame, etc. If the mold has been caused by one of these ongoing conditions, there is very little likelihood that there is any coverage for it, whether the policy excludes mold or not. In other cases, the mold may be the result of a covered loss, like a pipe rupture or entry of water through an aperture that was opened by a windstorm. In these cases, there may or may not be coverage for the mold remediation depending on when and how you discovered the loss. If you were aware of a water problem for some time and did not take appropriate action to correct it, then you will be out of luck with regard to the mold. There is an obligation in your policy that you take all reasonable steps to mitigate any loss that you experience. Meaning minimize the damages. Leaving a wet wall to dry on its own without any intervention does not meet that obligation. If, however, you were not aware, and there is no reason why you ought to have been aware, of the condition giving rise to the damage and mold, then there is a strong probability it could be covered. I gave instructions to one of my adjusters, I'm a claims supervisor, to pay a claim where there was extensive mold due to a hot water pipe that had a pinhole rupture behind a wall in the basement of an insured's home. In that instance, the insured's daughter resided in the basement of the home and she had been away at school for several months. When she returned, she noticed the carpet along one wall of her bedroom was moist, which led the insured to open the wall and find the mold. We paid the claim because there was no reason for the insured to have been in his daughter's room, and thus there was no reason he should have been aware of the water, and therefore he could not have been expected to take action to correct the water loss and prevent the mold. Of note, this policy did have a mold exclusion, but the intent of that exclusion is to exclude paying for mold that develops due to naturally occurring or ongoing moisture problems, not fortuitous ones like this. Please be aware that not all jurisdictions care about the intent of an exclusion, so despite the intent, the exclusion could still apply in some jurisdictions. It is pretty rare that mold remediation is covered, but it can be depending on the circumstances. The correct answer is not no. The correct answer is maybe. This is why there are adjusters, not Quora people, to adjust claims. Soapbox rant here, but I don't understand why people answer questions they are not qualified to answer. I think Quora is an excellent resource, but you have to be careful what you read here. I eat food every day. I have some friends who are astonishingly good cooks. I know the best dishes served at many restaurants near me. I love some good food. I am in no way qualified to answer questions about cooking. So I don't. If you have a mold problem, you have a water problem. Mold is tough stuff. Every house has mold. A house that somehow had no mold would, I imagine, be so hostile to life that the human, you, would not be able to live there either. That's why I say if you have a mold problem, you have a water problem. Insurance covers water damage that arises from a sudden, accidental leak from plumbing, or an appliance, or an overflow from a toilet, shower, etc. Or something weather-related like a leak from a roof. This is water that got where it is not supposed to be as the result of an occurrence. For example, on a certain day, the ice maker line for your refrigerator sprang a leak. You came home and found water on the floor around the refrigerator. That's covered. If this leak from the ice maker line occurred on Friday but you were gone on vacation until the following Wednesday, that's still covered. And if that water wicked up a wall and mold started growing there, that's also covered. If this leak occurred months ago but you didn't care until you found the floor by the refrigerator gave way and now your refrigerator is partially in the crawlspace below, that's not covered. And if you pull the refrigerator out of the hole and find mold growing all over the place under there, that's also not covered. Why? Insurance does not cover water damage that is the result of a continuous exposure to moisture that occurred over an extended period of time. How long is an extended period? In the HO3, the insurance form most people have if they own a home, that extended period of time as weeks, months or years. So I took that literally to be 14 days, and that's how I adjusted these claims. Since I could not actually know if that leak occurred literally for 14 days instead of 13, I applied a little common sense. If I saw rot and mold all over the place, it's not covered. Or, I would deny coverage for the damage from rot and mold but still extend coverage for things damaged but not rotted under the theory that the things with only a little damage only began to be damaged less than 14 days prior. By the way, if you have an HO3, there is a sublimit in your policy for mold remediation of $5,000. That gets a little complex to explain, but just know there is a limit that may come into play if you have a large loss. I generally work that out with the mold remediation contractor to hold actual mold remediation under $5,000 while applying remediation for purely water-damaged items separate. What that means is the sublimit almost never affected the insured.